Okay, so this time around, we're diving into some pretty intense territory. We've got a bunch of listener submissions, and the common thread is this really tricky situation, and, lots of people deal with it, where you start developing feelings for a friend, and that friend, well, they're already in a relationship,
Yeah.
which, let's be honest, it's messy.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
it's not something with, like, a simple answer or a quick fix.
Yeah.
So today, what we're going to do is sort of, I guess, dissect this whole thing from different angles. We'll look at, like, what might be driving those feelings. How can you kind of step back and see the situation clearly, objectively? Then, like, should you even say anything? And if so, how? And of course, the big one, all the ethical stuff we got to consider.
Definitely. It's
Right.
not about finding the right answer, but more about giving people the tools to think it through, for themselves.
Totally. And it's interesting looking at these submissions, there's a real mix of stuff. Some folks are deep in self-reflection, some are focused on relationships, others are coming at it from an ethical standpoint.
Mm-hmm. It's a pretty comprehensive picture, I'd say.
Yeah, so let's get into it. This is a deep dive into feelings for a friend who's taken.
Okay, let's dive in.
So, one thing that really jumps out from a lot of these submissions is this idea that before you do anything, before you even think about, like, telling your friend or whatever, you really got to look inward.
Oh, absolutely. That seems to be the foundation here. Self-awareness before any action.
Yeah, like what's really going on inside? Are these feelings, are they coming from a genuine connection with this person, like shared values, respect, that kind of stuff?
Boy, the good stuff.
Or is it more about, I don't know, maybe you're feeling lonely, or you're a little bored with your own life, or maybe you've just got this kind of idealized image of what their life is like?
It's so easy to do that, to kind of put people on a pedestal, especially when you see them through the lens of like a seemingly happy relationship.
Yeah, and there's this whole allure of the unavailable thing, right? It's almost like the less attainable something is, the more appealing it becomes.
Exactly. It taps into this fantasy. And it's important to remember every relationship has its challenges. What you're seeing is probably just a snapshot, not the full picture.
So true. And another thing I kept seeing in these submissions was this idea of like examining your wants, when it comes to relationships. Are you looking for something serious, long-term,
Commitment?
right, commitment?
Or is it more about seeking validation, attention, even just excitement? I mean, those things aren't bad in themselves, but it's about knowing what's driving you.
Absolutely. And I think a key point the sources brought up was the potential for, seeking just pleasure or immediate gratification without fully appreciating the commitment your friend already has in their existing relationship.
Right. So it becomes this question of balancing your desires with, respecting what your friend has built with someone else.
Exactly. And thinking about, what you realistically expect from a relationship with this person. Because often it's easy to get caught up in the fantasy and not think about the very real consequences for everyone involved. Totally. And this might sound a little out there, but one of the sources actually suggested that if what you truly admire is your friend's character, then the question of expressing romantic feelings might not even come up.
Hmm. That is interesting. It's like, are you attracted to the person themselves or the idea of them being in a relationship?
Yeah, it really makes you think. And there were some practical suggestions too for like really digging into this self-reflection. Journaling came up a lot. Just getting your thoughts and feelings down on paper.
Yeah, that can be super helpful.
And they even had some really insightful prompts like, what am I feeling? When did these feelings start? What qualities draw me to this person?
And that crucial one, am I more attracted to them because they're unavailable?
Right. It's like, would I even be interested if they were single? And then the classic, how would I want a friend to act if the roles were reversed?
Oh, a great gut check, for sure.
Definitely. And aside from journaling, the sources also talked about mindfulness. Just paying attention to your emotions as they come up without judging them or immediately trying to change them.
Yeah, just observing. That can bring a lot of clarity.
For sure. And, sometimes it helps to talk it out with someone you trust, someone who can be objective, a friend, a therapist, whoever can give you that outside perspective.
Absolutely. Because we can get so caught up in our own heads, a different viewpoint can be super valuable.
Okay, so let's say you've done all that. You've looked inward. You've really tried to understand your own feelings and motivations. What's the next step?
Well, based on these submissions, it seems like it's all about assessing the situation itself, like taking a good look in the reality of your friend's relationship.
Yeah, that makes sense. You got to kind of see the bigger picture.
Exactly. And the sources were pretty clear about this. The type of relationship really matters. Is it casual? Or is this a serious, committed, long-term thing. Like, are we talking marriage, living together, intertwined lives? Because those situations, they come with a whole other level of complexity.
And responsibility. Right.
Right, absolutely. And let's be real, it's hard to know what's truly going on in someone else's relationship. I mean, we all see those perfect couple pictures on social media, but who knows what's happening behind closed doors?
Oh, yeah. So true. It's like you're getting this curated version of their life, not the whole story.
Right. So the sources really cautioned against jumping to conclusions based on limited info, just snippets you observe here and there.
Right, right.
But they also said that, if someone seems genuinely happy or unhappy in their relationship, it's not irrelevant. It's something to take into account along with everything else.
Makes sense. It's all about getting as clear a picture as possible.
Exactly. And then there's another layer to consider, although it's probably less common. But, what if your friend and their partner have an open relationship or practice polyamory?
Right, right.
That changes the whole ethical landscape, although probably not something you should just assume.
Definitely not. Got to tread carefully there.
And then beyond the actual romantic relationship, it's worth considering the nature of your friendship itself.
Like, is it the real deal?
Yeah, is it a genuine connection? Or is it honestly mostly built around this, unspoken romantic potential? That's a tough question to face.
It is. And it leads to another tough one, which is like, do you value this friendship enough to risk losing it? Especially if your friend seems really happy and committed to their partner.
Right. You got to weigh those potential outcomes. Like best case, maybe something romantic happens. But worst case, you could damage the friendship beyond repair.
And the sources made another point that I thought was interesting. They said, think about whether these feelings have already started affecting your ability to enjoy the friendship.
Ah, that's a good one. Like if just being around them now causes you stress or makes things awkward.
Exactly. That's a sign that something's off balance.
It is. And this might be a good time to bring up attachment theory. Like understanding your own attachment style. Are you secure, anxious, avoidant? Can really help you navigate this whole thing.
Oh, that's so interesting. And it's not just you, right? Thinking about your friend's attachment style, too, can give you clues about how they might react if you do decide to, say something.
Exactly. It's about understanding those relational patterns, both yours and theirs.
Okay, so you've done the introspection. You've looked at the situation from all angles. Now the million-dollar question, do you tell him how you feel?
Ah, yeah. The big decision. And honestly, based on what we've seen in these submissions, there are some pretty clear situations where keeping it to yourself is probably the wisest move.
Like, give me an example. When's it a bad idea to say something?
Well, if your friend is clearly happy and secure in their relationship, bringing your feelings into the mix, it could be incredibly disruptive, even hurtful.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And it kind of goes without saying. But if your motivation is to break them up or stir up drama, that's just not cool.
No, definitely not. That's coming from a bad place.
Right. It's all about being honest with yourself about your intentions. And if you're mostly looking for some kind of validation or like a quick ego boost, that can backfire pretty badly in the long run.
True. You got to think about the long game here.
Exactly. And probably the biggest red flag is if your friend hasn't given you any sign, any hint at all, that they might be interested romantically.
Right. You're basically setting yourself up for rejection and potentially making things awkward.
Exactly. Sometimes silence is golden, as they say.
Okay, but let's say someone's really thought it through and they decide they do want to talk to their friend about their feelings. What's the best way to go about it?
Well, the sources really emphasize clarity and honesty. Like if you're asking them to meet up to talk, don't pretend it's just a casual thing if your underlying motive is romantic.
Right. Don't play games.
Be upfront, but also express your feelings without making demands or having expectations.
Yeah.
It's about sharing your truth, not trying to control their response.
Right. It's about your experience, not trying to force something to happen.
Exactly. And something else that came up a lot was the importance of reiterating how much you value the friendship. Make it clear that that relationship is a priority, even more so than any romantic hopes you might have.
So it's like, hey, I feel this way, but I get it if you don't feel the same. And no matter what, I still cherish our friendship.
Exactly. It's about putting the friendship front and center.
And timing matters, right? You wouldn't want to have this conversation right before their partner's birthday or something.
Right? That's just asking for trouble. Pick a time when things are relatively calm, no major life events happening. And think about the setting, too. A public place, but somewhere quiet, like a coffee shop, is usually better than, like, a super emotional one-on-one dinner at home.
It's about keeping things neutral, not adding to the pressure.
Totally. And the sources gave this really great tip about using I statements. Like, I've developed feelings for you, and I wanted to be honest. I understand you're in a relationship, and I don't expect you feel the same way, but I needed to be true to myself.
I love that. It's so clear and direct, but not demanding or accusatory.
Exactly. It keeps the focus on your experience, which is really all you can control in this situation.
Totally. And going into this kind of conversation, you got to be ready for anything. They might feel the same way, they might not, they might be flattered, but stay committed to their partner. They might need time to think.
Right. There's no way to predict how they'll react, so just be prepared to handle whatever comes your way.
Yeah, be prepared for anything. Okay, so we've talked about self-reflection, assessing the situation, communication. What about the ethical side of all this? Because that's a huge piece of this whole puzzle.
Oh, absolutely. The ethical considerations are paramount. The sources were really strong on this point. You have to respect your friend's existing relationship. It's not just about you and your feelings. It's about the potential hurt you could cause.
It's about seeing the bigger picture, right? All the people involved.
Exactly. Think about it. If someone was trying to pursue your partner, how would that feel?
Not good, that's for sure.
It's that classic golden rule in action. Treat others how you want to be treated. And even if it's not a guarantee, that idea of what goes around comes around, it's a good reminder to act with integrity.
Karma, right?
Exactly.
Right.
And sometimes caring about your friend means wanting them to be happy, even if it's not with you.
It's about putting their needs first.
It is. And respecting boundaries is huge, especially if your feelings aren't reciprocated. You have to be willing to accept that and not pressure them or try to change their mind.
Yeah, that can be so tough.
It is. And that's where creating some distance can be helpful. Maybe taking a break from hanging out, unfollowing them on social media for a while, just to give yourself space to process everything.
Yeah, self-care is so important in this situation.
Absolutely. And another thing the sources warned against was triangulation. Like, don't get involved in their relationship problems. Don't offer unsolicited advice.
Oh, that's good advice. Don't insert yourself into their drama.
Exactly. And above all, be honest and upfront. No manipulation, no sneaky flirting behind their partner's back.
It's about maintaining your own self-respect too, right?
Absolutely. And if, down the line, your friend does reciprocate your feelings, the ethical thing is for them to end their current relationship completely before anything new starts.
So no overlapping relationships, no messy breakups.
Right. Everyone deserves respect and a clean slate. So yeah, this whole situation, it's complicated. It requires a ton of self-awareness, empathy, and you really have to be committed to acting ethically.
There are no easy answers, that's for sure. But hopefully by exploring all these different aspects, the feelings, the situation, communication, ethics, you know, our listeners can feel a little more equipped to deal with this kind of thing if it comes up in their own lives.
Totally. And as you, the listener, continue to reflect on all this, it brings us to a final thought. What does genuine connection really mean, especially in the context of existing relationships?
Ooh, that's a deep one.
It is. And how might your understanding of connection evolve as you move forward? It's
Right.
something to think about, something to maybe even journal about.
Something to ponder, for sure. All right, that's our deep dive for today. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time. See ya.